So here we are with our fifth game. We made our four games successfully, and I'm excited to start this fifth one because this is a completely different thing from all the things we have seen. Till now, we have made different 3D games. Now, this time, we are going to explore 2D with 3D elements. So, I just imported the assets we need for this prototype file. I didn't do anything in this. This is my sample scene itself, which I have now. Let me open my prototype scene and delete the sample scene. I'll be sharing the link for the assets with you people later so that you can just import that. That's pretty straightforward thing which we have done in the four games, right? You can easily import this. So coming to this fifth prototype, see, we have something in our game view, but we are unable to see anything in our screen. But coming to main camera, see, looking towards main camera, we have something like this. So this is a 2D game. We'll be able to see that better when we have 2D mode. So here, let's click 2D and see. Now we are able to see this in a better way, and see, we don't have any axis here. Now in default we'll be having only two axes, the x and y, but everything in our game will be having its default things as xyz. Everything won't change, but our view in our scene only changes to 2D. Internally everything is 3D itself. Like if we see this is a 3D thing, right? This camera view is also 3D, and that's the thing. So let's just get back to 2D view where we can see things in a better way. And now coming to our the way this looks, see, we have a texture applied here and we are able to see black here. If we want, we can change those using these any of these textures here. So I like this particular thing, so I'll be leaving this like this. So if you want any change, you can just drag drop this in here, and you can undo if you want. Like you can touch different things like this, or you can place whatever you want. So you can change both of the sides, or even you can change this middle one also. You can apply whatever texture you want from the course library textures folder. You can we have different textures. You can use whatever you want on these elements. So coming to the first part, so in this game, what we'll be doing is we'll be having different targets. Let me show you them. So here we have a folder called pops. In our course library, we'll be having a folder called props. In that, we'll be having different folders. One is bad, balls, food, and other. Let's explore these a bit. In one contains skull, whereas other contains bomb. Definitely, they are bad. Coming to other things, these are different kinds of balls and food. See, we have different food items in here. And next, others, in this we have different barrel and crates. So these are the things we'll be using. So in this game we'll be making we'll be randomly generating these good or bad targets. The player must click on them to destroy them. Yes, you heard it right. This time we are going to work with mouse input. We are going to check if mouse click happened on a particular object or not. So this is one of the exciting thing, one of the point that made me excited. So let's create our targets. So first let's create the bad targets. So coming to props, in bad I prefer skull. You pick whatever you want. So I'll name it as add one. While coming to good props, I want to pick one wall. I'll call it good one. Good space one. And I'll pick some food item. Mm, I'll just choose this energy can. I'll call it good too. You can use whatever you want. You can use all three as food items itself, or it's all up to you. And the third thing, let me use this question mark barrel. So I'll use this as good tree. So here are my targets, right? So see in the scene, they're all uh, overlap. So let's use our move tool to move them a bit. So this is one thing. See, yes, till now we have moved using axis, either this x-axis or here this is y-axis. Now we have this intersection. With this, we can move it around the plane directly. So this is the second good object. Whereas, yeah, this is a bit small, but it's okay, I guess. Hmm. So here are our different objects. Three of them are good targets, whereas this skull is a bad target. So here, as I said, we'll be dealing with mouse click, and we want to generate them randomly from bottom of our screen. Like they'll be generating from bottom of the screen somewhere like this or like this. We'll make them randomized in three ways. The first thing is position. The second thing is the upward force which will add on to them. So like if we randomize this, some will be coming up to this side, whereas some other thing may be rising till here. So like if this is randomized, so if the height is randomized, that gives another cool feeling. And the third thing is we'll be adding random torque. We haven't seen what torque is. uh, I'll clear that by the end of this particular lesson. So for that, we need some physics, right? So for that, we need to add our rigid body, and also we need to detect collision. So we need our box collider also. But see, I have selected all of them and added this rigid body, but I can't add this box collider for all of them. Whereas uh, adding this collider, I'll be going as one by one. So for this, I guess I can add this box collider itself. And let me check if it is okay. We can barely see this green line here. So that itself shows our collider. So I guess this is cool. Whereas for this ball, I'll be adding a sphere collider. Yes, it's done. For this box collider is fine. Make sure that the collider is exactly at the boundaries of the game objects. So for this, is capsule collider good for this? No, let me change that to box collider itself. Uh, yes, if this is also green, but it's not visible, right? As this is also green. See, we have this box collider like this. So I guess this is pretty fine for these colliders. So let's just continue. See, these are all our targets. So we need some behavior for these, right? These have to be from a random position. They need to have some random upward force, and they need to have some random torque. So to give this behavior, all these things act in the same way in that particular manner. So to give that behavior, let's create a script. I'll create a folder called scripts, and in this, let me create this C# script, and I'll name that as target. And selecting all of this, see, I'm selecting bad one, holding shift, I'm clicking on my last one. Now I'm adding my target script. Now let me quickly check if I have all the components I needed or not. So I have this rigid body, box collider, and target. Okay, bad one is okay. Let's me see good one. Yes, yes, it is also fine. Okay, good three. Yes, all the four objects have all the things. So it's time for me to generate or create prefabs of these targets. So uh, sorry, we can't do that all at a time, as we have to create original prefab one by one. So good three, good two. For everything I'm creating original prefabs itself. So we have all our prefabs, right? Now we no longer need this in here. So let me delete this in our uh, hierarchy. So with this, now we have this particular, what do we say, if we take one particular target, we have a rigid body for them, box collider, and this target script. Now it's time for us to give some behavior to them. So we want some behavior, like if we place them like this, immediately they need to go to a random position which is below the screen, like somewhere like this. And after going to this particular position, they need to have some random upward force and even some random torque, so that they'll be rotated in some manner. So that's the requirement. So for that, let's start the scripting part. So let me double click on target and open this. So here we are in our target.cs, our first script of this game. So see, as I said, we are going to add some forces, we are going to give some torques, etc., right? So for this, we definitely need the rigid body reference. So let me just create that. So for this, I'll be writing private rigid body. I'll call this target RB. As this target.cs is present on all our targets, target RB refers to that particular rigid body for the given game object. Like say, if we consider our so if we consider our ball, in this case, target RB refers to its own rigid body, which is here. Whereas in this energy drink case, target RB refers to this particular rigid body. So uh, each one have its own differentiation. Like each target rigid body will be referred to its own rigid body. So now let me get reference to that target RB equal to game object dot get component. So I can directly write get component rigid body, because it's on the same object, right? So the type is rigid body, and see, with this we have reference to our rigid body in the target RB variable. So now we can do whatever we want with this uh, target RB. So first our target is to place this at random position. So let's first do that. To deal with position, we need the reference to our transform. So we already have that. We can directly use transform in our code to refer the uh, transform of particular game object. So transform dot position, I am setting this to new vector 3 of this one can be, I need, see, I need my x to be, let me check that. So I'm using, yeah. Now see, let me see the edges. See here, my x is 3.9, so I can give this +4. In reverse also, let me have that as -4. So the range +4 to -4, sorry, -4 to +4 is good for x, whereas y we need it below our screen view, right? So we can have it something like -5. I guess -5 would be better. So coming to z, it's always 0, right? See, it's our 2D game. So we are dealing with x and y. We no need to bother about z. So that can be 0 itself. So coming here. So my x, I want to give a random value. So I'm using the random class. I'll be using random dot range of. I'll be dealing with floating point. So I'm giving -4.0f to 4.0f, which returns a float value. And next, my y direction, the value can be -5.0f, whereas my z, I can just leave that as 0. So see, now as this is present in the start, when we generate this particular game object or a copy of this prefab, as this will be getting executed, it will be directly going into a random position based on this line of code. Now it's time for us to give it some forces, like to give it some force in the upward direction and to give it some torque so that it rotates randomly. So first, let's deal with the force, which we have already seen in the earlier sessions. So for this, we'll be using our target RB, and in that we'll be using our add force method. So what we have already seen how this works. We'll be giving a vector 3, and this vector 3 will be acting as a force. As we already know, vector is something which has direction and uh, a particular direction and a particular magnitude. So when we say add force of this particular vector 3, it will be giving a force in that particular direction with some particular magnitude as defined by us. So this time we want the force to be upward in the y direction. So we'll be using vector 3 dot up, which is we have seen this earlier itself. Vector 3 dot up is just a shorthand for writing 0, 1, 0, which is a vector pointing along y direction. So so this is okay. So we have vector 3 dot up. So let me scale this a bit into, I can give something like I want this force to be random, right? So as this force had to be random, I'll be scaling this up with some random value. So I'll be using random dot range of This time I'll be dealing with integers itself. So I can give something like between 12 comma 15. So let me give some random values. We can change them later. And now I'll be giving this force mode as impulse because I want this to be act as the force that's applied instantaneously. So here we are giving the direction as 0 1 0, which is upwards in the y-axis. And next we are amplifying this using this particular random dot range value. So this random dot range will be giving values 12, 13 and 14. So when we multiply 12, 13 and 14, this magnitude of the vector will become 12, 13 or 14, right? So here it is, and we are applying this force as impulse. So next, coming to the torque. See, forces will make a body move in particular direction, whereas torque will make a body to rotate. Torque is nothing but rotational force. It will not change a particular game object based on its position. Torque will only change its rotation. So if I give say if I give my torque as 1 in x-axis, 0 in y and 0 in z, my torque will give an acceleration of 1 degree per second square. It's pretty physics stuff, but here we'll be dealing that with simple code. So here even this is physics, right? For this also we'll be needing this rigid body itself, and we'll be using this add torque. And for this torque we'll be using this particular thing. We'll be giving 3 floats, one in x-axis, one in y-axis and one in z-axis, and we'll be giving force mode also. So using these floats, this particular torque will be applied on that particular axis. So I can give a random value. The torque can be like minus 10 to 10. Yes, we can change this later however we want. So we can increase the same with y, same with z. So every time this function call picks a random value. Say here I got, and I can give this as float so that I'll be getting floating point values. And same with the z-axis. See here, this is a 2D game, but here we want our game object to rotate even in z-axis, right? Even our background is a 2D and our camera is placed in a 2D manner, but our objects are 3D. So even we can perceive the depth also. See, when we see the shadow, we'll be able to figure out the depth. So even though we do not practically have the g-axis, we can perceive that. So that's the thing. And here also I'll be giving force mode as impulse, as this has to be done instantly. So and notice that this code is very messy and I have everything in my start. So let's just test once and see how it performs. So let me play this. And when I drag this into hierarchy, it must happen. See, we have this. Yes, that's good, I guess. See, but see, we have our game objects coming, not even touching the half of our game of a half point of our scene. So let me just change my x position, sorry, y position. So let me make it -2 also, so that they'll be spawning a bit above. So let me test this again. Okay, I guess this is cool now. Yeah. Yep. So with this we have we are able to, we gave the behavior to our targets such that they'll be able to generate randomly, have random force and have random torque also. And now this code is very messy, so let's just create few methods for this. So first thing first, coming to our position here, let's generate a random position. So before that, let me create few variables for this. So I can have this like private. I'll make all of them private because these values are working for me, right? So why not have this? If I want, I'll change them later coming back to my code itself, or making them public. I can test that in my inspector and again change that back to private. So here coming to the position, I'll be naming this as private float x pawn range. X pawn range, I can give that as 4.0 f, and as this is negative and positive, so I can use the same variable private float y spawn position. I'll give that as y spawn pos, and that is -2.0 f. So here let me replace them. This one must become x pawn range. As that has a negative sign, it becomes -4.0 f, and this is x pawn range. The next one is y spawn position. As the other thing, the z is 0, we can just leave that as 0 because we'll not never deal with that. So coming to this particular thing here, I can have this like so I can create a method for this. I need not have some variable. Yeah, I can have some variable like private int that can be min force. So minimum force that can be applied, I'll assign that with 12, and I'll rename this here min force. Whereas the other thing, private int max force, I'll be giving that the value 15, and here I'll be replacing that with max force. See here we have -10 and 10, so I can have this particular 10.0 f as my private float. I can give that as max torque, and I can use the negative of it as my min torque. So negative of my max torque, and I'll be using max torque itself. So I'll be replacing this whole thing with this. Yes, see here. So we have this here, but even now this is quite messy, right? So we have created variables. Now it's time for us to create methods. So coming to the position, let's create a random position. So for this, I'll be using void generate get random position. and in here I'll be just cut paste this. So here I need to return my vector3, right? So I need to have this as vector3, and I'll be giving return new vector3 of this particular thing, and I can call this function here, get random position. Oh, okay, it's cool. So coming up here, I can generate a random force. So here also I'll be returning the vector3. So here I can write it as vector3 space get random force, and here I can directly write it as return vector3 dot up into random dot range. Yes, these variables are already defined, so I have no issues in here. Coming to here, I need to call this function get random force. Yes. So coming to here, let me generate a random torque here. I'll be using that on each axis. So here this value is float, right? So I need to give my data type, return data type as float. Generate, sorry, get random torque. So I can just return this. So here it's giving a float value, so I can call this function in x-axis. Sorry, here with x-axis, same with yeah, same with y-axis, and the same with z-axis itself, z-axis also. So here we have things defined well, right? So we have significance to each of these particular methods, and we are using, and even the variables, we have significance to them also. We have particular meaning associated with each of them. So uh, see, I need you people to observe these things clearly. Say if I write something like on collision enter, sorry, private on collision, am I not able to get? So let me leave that. But see, we generally have private something like int and the method name, right? So I can give method of and something like this. But see, it's I can name it method X and return 5. So see, if I have some method like this, see, I have declared this private, right? But here I didn't declare anything. Uh, Even this works fine because the default access modifier is private. So here, even though I didn't give this as private, these are already private. So I guess uh, that's a very good feature which we have, because we need not specifically declare them as private. So coming here, see here, get random position and get rand force, these two are returning vector3 itself, but here we used a new keyword to create a new vector3, whereas in here we just uh, multiplied this vector3 dot up into with some random value which we obtain here. This is because here in this particular case we already have this vector3 dot up, which is a vector already. We are amplifying this vector, we are changing this vector and returning, whereas in this case we are using this vector3, we are generating a new vector on our own. So in this case we needed this new keyword to generate this variable and return its value. So uh, So with this, we made our code clean. Now let's get back to Unity and test this once again. So dragging this, yes, it's cool. See, they're rotating irrespective of the axis, and see how cool it was. Yes, this is nice. So let's get back. See, now we are generating these uh, targets on our own. Why not generate them automatically? So for that, let's create something called as game manager. So you might have a doubt. Till now, whenever we spawned something, we have used spawn manager. Then why game manager now in this particular scenario? We'll be using this particular thing to change our game setup. Like later, we'll be implementing few things like the difficulty of game. Uh, we'll ask the player before entering the game whether the player want to play in the easy mode, medium mode or the hard mode. Based on player selection itself, our entire gameplay will be different. We'll be using our game manager to do that. So let's come to script and see, create a new C# script named as game manager. And in here, see, immediately instead of having this C# icon here, we have got this settings icon. C#, Unity gives us uh, these things in handy where it differentiates the things well. Many use this particular game manager as the settings file for our game. So that's the reason why Unity have given its uh, predominant icon as a setting symbol. So I have added this game manager script to our game manager. So let me save this and let me open the script here. Here, see, I want, as of now, I want this game manager to be the behavior which will be generating my targets in my game with a specific time in a specific time period. So in here, let me create a list of objects. Till now we have dealt with arrays, we have never dealt with our lists. There is a slight difference between arrays and lists in the implementation point of view, but in the way we use them, it's almost the same. So coming here, so let's start this. Let me create a public list, and this list is a list of game objects, right? Here in array will be, let me show the difference. I need to give game object and I'll be name it as targets. Whereas if we want to create an array, see, we'll be giving game object, which is the data type, and we'll be using this square brackets to represent that this is a particular array, target array. Whereas this is list, and we are saying like we need a list and the list must contain game objects. So it's pretty simple stuff. So let me just save this and get back to Unity and see in our game manager. See, now it's asking for us to give targets, and similar, it is behaving similar to array. As I said, they're pretty similar, but in implementation details, there are few differences. So here, let me give the size as 4 as we have these 4 targets. Coming to prefabs, let me just initialize them. Make sure that you know which target is there at which index of the list here. So I'm giving zero element as uh, my bad, whereas my first element as good one, second element as here by element I mean index. So the zero index is bad one, first index element is good one, second element index is good two, the third element index is third index element is good three. So let me say this. Here we have reference to all our four prefabs. So let me now write a coroutine which takes some time in between and then generates a random item from this list. So in here, as we know, to write coroutine, we need IEnumerator, right? So let me use IEnumerator, which is an interface in or C sharp. And now we'll be writing our routine. So I'll call it spawn targets, target, targets. Yes, I can use targets, routine. And in this, why we just need these routines, we want to count time other than this start and update, right? We want this particular execution to happen separately outside of this start update loop. As we know, start will be called only once in the first frame, whereas update will be called for for one time per each frame, right? So basically this is a loop. We want this particular thing to happen outside of this loop, a part of this loop. So here, as we know, we need to use yield to yield this particular thing. What will be yielding will be returning new wait uh, wait for seconds, and this value will be spawn delay. You might notice I didn't create this variable as of now, so let me do that. So I can use this as public int, sorry, float spawn delay, and I can give that a value as 1.0 or guess, let's make it 1.5. So here we have given a default value for this, so it will be waiting for that particular amount of time. And next, coming now, why are we waiting now? We are waiting just to create a new random target, right? So for that we need this random.range again. So first we need to have this index. So this is our list of targets, and from this we need to, if we want to select a random target, we need to select a random index, right? So here int index, I'm giving that as random dot range of, and here see, I can give this as 0 comma 4, where I'll be generating the values 0 1 2 and 3. As I have given integers, the smaller one is inclusive, whereas the larger one is exclusive. So I'll be able to generate only 4 values, which are 0 1 2 and 3, which are pretty fine because I have only 4 elements. But this is not the thing I want. I want my code to be even better. Say if I later, if I change my list such that it contains 5 elements, I must come back to this code and write change this, right? So I don't want it like this, so I'll be using targets. And here in case of array, we have seen to get the length of array, we used array dot length, whereas in our case, in this list, we'll be using the list name dot count. So let's see what it does. It just gives the it just gives the size of the list. So now let me use this random index. Let me use this random index to generate this random what do we say, random targets. So in here I'll be instantiating them. So instantiate of targets, and that index value I'll be giving as this index. So by this, see, we are able to generate a random index from here, and this random index we are using on this targets list to instantiate uh, a random game object, like to create a copy of a random prefab. So we have successfully written our coroutine. Now it's time to start this coroutine in our start. So here let's start our coroutine, and I'll be giving this like this. So in our start we are starting this coroutine, and by waiting for this 1.5 seconds, which is our delay as of now, we can edit that at any time. By waiting for this amount of time, it will generate a random index, and with that index we are generating object, right? We are making copy of our prefab, which means we are generating random object itself, sorry, copy of a random prefab. So let's just test that in here. So entering the play mode. See, now we got a ball. Why we don't have more than one? Okay, let me. Sorry, I just created one thing, right? Yeah, I understood what's the issue. My mouse is a bit bad. So here, guys, I just wrote this once, which means this particular block of code happens only one time, right? I need a loop in here which generates these objects over and over again and again. So coming in here, I'll be just selecting everything. Sorry. Yes, I'll be selecting everything, and I'll be using a while loop here. See, while loop we need to give a condition, right? Obviously that condition will return a logical true or false. So here I have this value as false, true here. This happens forever. So this is an infinite loop I'm creating in this coroutine in here. And this infinite loop, what it does, it just waits for some time, and later it generates a index, and it will instantiate a copy of prefab in our list of targets with that particular index. So let me save this and check that. It's just my bad that I just forgot to use the while loop. So this time, yeah, let's see. So we have another one. So cool, right? For every 1.5 seconds, we are able to generate random objects. Yeah, they are random enough. And now see, and even see, we have physics between them so well, which is a good thing we wanted. So yes, yeah, it's working. So now, each time, yeah, we are infinitely generating them. And see, here we have something called a sensor in our game, let's check what it is. See, this is like a collider. Yeah, I guess now it looks fine. See, this is a collider which we have below our game, and see, we have each trigger checked on this. So when our game objects collide with this particular thing, we can use this to trigger the collision, right? And see, as the game objects go beyond this, like say we can destroy game objects in our two cases. The first thing, where our mouse hits the game objects, we can destroy that. And the second thing is here, we when the game objects trigger with this sensor, we can delete them. So it's a behavior to our targets, right? So let's get back to our target script and see what we can do. So in here, let me get back to my target script. So here, I'll be using different methods here. The first thing, I need to destroy these targets when my mouse click happen. So for that, Unity has given us the methods already. So for that, we'll be using private on mouse down. On mouse down. I'm not able to get that. Method wait void. Yes, see, I have that in my blue color, which means yes, it's a predefined method. And now on mouse down, what I'm doing, I can just destroy this game object. So let's write it down. So here, see, on mouse down, I'm destroying this game object. Whereas on trigger enter also, I need to destroy this game object, because on trigger enter. And just give me a second, I'll be explaining why that is. See, on mouse down is called whenever we'll be clicking the game objects and this mouse is in its collider range. So let me take an example of a game object. So say if I have this bad one, and let me focus on that. Say assuming that just assume that it's the game mode, and see if I click somewhere in this box collider region, there is, I guess you people can see that. See, there is a box collider which is green in color attached to this game object. See, it's the particular region in here. So our mouse click on mouse down will be called whenever we click and that mouse is present in this particular box collider region. So this is already implemented well by Unity itself. We are able to just use that with a single method, call to the method, or just overriding the method. So here on mouse down, we are doing this particular thing. We want to destroy this game object. Whereas see, on trigger enter, whereas let's see our sensor below. See here, we have this particular sensor, see in here at -10 of our y, which is far below our game, far below to our game. So as this is -10, we no longer need the game objects that are below that. So we are using this sensor to trigger whenever a collision happens, and on that on trigger enter, we are just destroying the game object. By this, let's just play and see what happens. So when we play this, see, I lay this and see after, see, when they're below this sensor, when they just touch this sensor, they're dying, right? And let me try clicking them. So my bad. Again, my bad. See, that energy drink has gone. Now let me try with this ball. See, this is also gone. My mouse is a bit bad, guys. Please bear with me. Yes, yes. See, when I click, I'm able to delete them. So I think I need to get rid of this energy drink, which is too small, or I can change its size a bit. Yes, I'll be scaling that up so that we'll be able to click it in a more better way. It's already 222. I will make that as 4, 4, and 4. And made that. Let's try now. So with this, let me save this and try this now. On hitting play, see, we'll be having our random object spawning. And is this too big now? And let me wait until, yeah, I missed that. So it's too big now. Let me make 333 for this. So let me say this. Okay. So with this, we have finished our first lesson, guys. Uh, so we have seen. Let me just recap this. We have seen 2D views. We have we have added torque. We have written our game manager. We used lists. We used while loops. And we used while of true, which is an infinite loop. And we have seen mouse events. And not only mouse down, on mouse down, we can use different mouse events like on mouse enter, on mouse up, etc. We can always refer this Unity scripting reference website to know what method, the method description, return data types, whatever you want. We can always check the Unity's official reference. So coming to our second lesson, see, in our first lesson we completely dealt with setting up our targets and the basic gameplay where we'll be clicking and destroying the game objects or the good targets, or else they'll be destroyed once they're below the sensor line. And next, coming to our second lesson, we in this second lesson we are going to deal with a new thing. Till now in our games, till now, the 4 games, we didn't implement something called a score, right? We have never gave a player the feedback in terms of score. Uh, so this is the time where we'll be implementing score, and in this process we will be knowing different things about UI in Unity. So basically, a score is a UI element. Like we need to, that's not a game object. We need to deal with user interface. And in our case, this is just a text. Whereas we can also have, and we'll be dealing with them like will be in later lessons we'll be giving our player an option to select uh, different levels, like say easy, medium, and hard, as I said earlier, and those will be buttons. So we can have different UI elements, whereas now we'll be dealing with text as of now. So in here, let me go to my hierarchy and see here. My mouse is too bad. Uh, so in here, let me create this. And when I click on create, I have a bunch of different options, right? In that, I'll be selecting UI. And guys, my mouse has become so unpredictable. I'll, yeah. So select here, we have something called as Text Mesh Pro Text. Just select that. See, there is a high chance that it will be asking you to import this TMP Essentials. Just click that. The package will be added to our project. And please make sure that you do not import this TMP examples and extras. We don't need that. We just need those TMP essentials, and we have imported them successfully. So closing this. Wow. And now coming here, I'll be renaming this as score text. And see, we got something new saying that as canvas, and whereas our game is this smaller compared to this. So coming here, see, in our game, uh, as we said earlier, uh, will be whatever thing that's present in our camera view, those will be seen, right? But that's not the case with our UI. The way that our UI looks in our game is completely dependent on the canvas and how we anchor them to canvas. So this canvas is a representation to our screen, to our complete screen. And see, we have this new text in here, and here in our game also we will be able to see new text in here. See, that's not clearly visible, but see, this is now we are able to see this in our game view at the bottom, right? And see, in our canvas also it's present roughly at the that particular position itself. So first, let's see how this happens. So in Canvas here, we have something called as score, this particular text, and see we have, instead of transform, we have this rect transform. In this, we will be dealing with rect transform itself instead of normal transform. So, and these here, we have this center. See, this says anchor presets, right? And this is center. We have here four things, like four tiny triangles. We call them as anchors, and based on this itself, this particular new text will be visible in the screen. So now we want our text to be left uh, left top corner of our scene. So I'll be clicking this particular preset. So if I click this, see, our anchors have moved to, sorry, yeah, our anchors have moved to this particular position here, which is top left, uh, top left corner. And now based on this position, I'll be moving my text. Sorry, yeah. see, I guess that is okay. And now, see, if I change my scale of my screen now, see whatever my screen is, whatever, however I change my screen, see my new text is always present to the left of my game game view, right? So see, it's not the way like it's not the way our camera behaves. This canvas makes the UI elements stay at a particular position based on the anchor points. So we need to set some anchor points. We need to set those anchors uh, in a particular way. We can give them a custom preset, or we can use these predefined presets, and using them we'll be making we'll be placing this new text so that we'll be able to uh, view them no matter what screen size we have. This is a big challenge for the UI, basically even in Android development also, to make them look better irrespective of the screen size. So here, as of now, I'll change this score. The text here, it's new text. I'll change that as score, and I'll place a column here. And yeah, now let's see few properties that our score have. Here, when I changed this text, I'm able to change the text, and see here we have this text mesh pro UG UI. So using if we have reference to this, we'll be able to change this particular thing however we wanted. So let me change the font a bit. So here I'll be using this particular indie flower. So that's okay. Coming to this, I'll change my font style to bold and italic. Yeah, that's okay. And next I'll change my font size to 45, say. See, if I give something like 70, even then it's looking bad. So let me give this as 42 as of now. Even we can change our color to this, color of this. So let me give that some value like, yes, I guess that is cool. You can always select your own colors or whatever you want based on your interest, and you can even give gradients also. And I guess that's cool. We can change this alignment, whatever. We have all these bunch of options. Just explore them and have those options which are perfect for you, or you feel are good. We can resize this window however we wanted. Based on the size of text, we need this window. So yes, this is the thing with the basic text and text in Text Mesh Pro, and using the same to tweak few settings or properties of that. So now it's time to control our text through our code. We need our score to be changed, right? So we want our score to be updated through our code. So let's first go to our game manager. So in here, see, these, as we said earlier, these are libraries, right? Say in similar to the way where we'll be writing hash include stdio.h in C, or import math or import something in Python. It's a similar thing. So here to deal with TextMesh Pro, we need to add another library called using TM Pro. So this is the library which we'll be using to deal with our TextMesh Pro functionalities, like the TextMesh Pro text or TextMesh Pro UI things which we get from TextMesh Pro. To deal with them, we need this particular library. And now on having this library, it's time for us to create a few reference variables. So we want to change our score text, right? So we need a reference to this. And I guess you might have observed, we have seen that there is TextMesh Pro. See, in here, let me point that. My mouse is too bad. Sorry for this. Just give me. Yes. See here, this TextMesh Pro UZ UI, right? We need reference to this particular thing. And we can create something of this type. So let's just go there. Yeah, using shortcuts is a way better for me right now. So here, let me create this TextMesh Pro UZ UI. And see, I'll call this score text. And I'll refer this from my inspector itself. So here, the other thing, I'll be creating a new variable called score public int score. I'll initialize that with 0. And now it's time for me to write this. So here in start, I'll be giving it like this: score text equal to dot text. So I have this score text property. So it's like, just see this. As we have declared this as TextMesh Pro UZ UI, and that variable name is score text. So here indirectly we are sorry. Yeah. See, we got reference to this TextMesh Pro UZ UI, and now see this particular dot. In this particular thing, we have text, right, which we have given score, and we are able to see that. Now we are doing the same thing in our code. There is no big difference in this. So this score.text means the one which we have there in the box. So I'll give I'll give that as score colon space, and as we have already seen what concatenation is, let me directly use that. So this just concatenates this text score with the score. So as we concatenate this particular thing is a string, and the score, as we have set that to 0, we need to see 0 there. So let me save this and get back to Unity and run this. So okay, we have an error here. I just didn't initialize that with our score text. So here in our game manager, see, it's asking for our score text and there is nothing there. So it's time for me to initialize. Yes, we have it initialized. So let me test this now. So see, here we have 0, right? So now we are able to change our UI elements from our script. So it's a good thing. Now I'll be making a method for this, and I'll be using this method to deal with this particular things. So let's get back to our code in here. See, here I'll just cut this part and I'll be creating a new method. I'll call that method which returns, sorry, what do we do? I need a method which updates the score. So I can have this in this way: private void update score, and I'll be using this as int score to add. So this is my parameter. If I give that parameter, I'll be using that to change my score. So now I have to update my score. So I'll use score plus equal to score to add. So with this, see, if I have my particular score as 0 and I call this function with the value of 5 as a parameter. So now my score becomes 5. And as this is a public int or which is present global, the value will be retained. So now I need to print the text, right? So for that, let me paste this score text equal to score. So let me save this, and now it's time to call this function. So here I can call this as update score of 10, and say when we give, as we know, in start we'll be having a start will run only for once. So let me just test the same function in here in our routine, coroutine. I'll be calling this just to test this update score of, here I'll be giving a value of 1 because or I can give a value of 5 here. Yes, so let's get back to Unity and test that. My score must first become 10, and from then it must start incrementing by 5 again and again. So let's just check that. See, it's 10. Whenever a new object is created, we are making it to increment by 5. So that's the thing. Coming back to our code in here, we no longer need this. I use this just to test if our method is fine. It's perfectly fine. So and I can remove this particular thing also. Instead of 10, I'll just initialize this with 0, and I don't need to do that. My initial, okay, yes, I need to do that because initially without this there will be no score text, no value to score text, right? Initially I need to initialize this particular value with 0 at least. So coming to our, so we have this particular update score, but we have an issue here. See, this update score, as this is private, this can be accessed only in this game manager script, whereas we have another script called targets, right? So in this we are destroying this game object, or destroying this targets whenever we click them with our mouse. So it's the place where we can update our score, right? So our whole point of our game is that we are generating some random targets, and we want our player to click on them so that they'll get destroyed. So what do a player get just by hitting on them? It's, now we are giving our score to the player so that the player will be able to see the score and have some kind of fun element, like say till now we have made the player just play, but we have never gave any reward back. So these casual games work, or hyper casual games which are pretty simple to play, they mostly rely on the score, where uh, even a small gameplay will give many rewards and keep the player engaging and interesting. So having score to our game gets the player engagement, takes the player engagement to another level. So now it's time for us to add the scores. And see, we have this. Sorry, guys. So we have this method in another script. So first, it's time for us to make it public so that it can be used in other scripts also. And see, in target.cs, to use this method, we first need reference to this particular uh, game manager. And let me get back to Unity and see, we have this game manager script attached to this game manager game object. So to have this reference to script and a method, so first let's come bottom to top. We need reference to our method update score. So let's see in which class it is present, or in which script it is present. It's present in game manager script. Okay, cool. Now we need reference to our game manager script, right? So to get that, we need to see where it is present. Game manager script is present in our empty game object. Once upon empty, now we populated that with our script. Uh, so we want reference to our game manager game object now. So let's get back to Visual Studio and make that happen. See, first we need to create this variable, and I can do that over there. Yes, here I'll call this private, and see, we need game manager, right? So I gave this type as game manager, and I'll call this game manager itself. So now I have declared this game manager variable, but I have to initialize that, right? So let's go to start, and in this, let me initialize this game manager equal to. So first, as I said, to get game manager script, we need game manager object, game object. So we need to we need to find that. So I'll be using game object dot find of, and here I need to give string name of our game object perfectly. So game manager. If the name, even the case changes, we'll be having the issue of even this changes will be having the issue of not getting reference to that. Uh, Guys, just give me a second. Yeah, even if this changes, we cannot get the reference to our game manager. So once we have this reference to our game manager, we can use get component, and for this get component, so guys, just give me a second. I have a small issue in here. Yeah. Sorry guys, I'm back again. Sorry guys. Here we have reference to this game object, and now we'll be using this get component, and here we need the component as the game manager script. So we'll be using this game manager class, and that's the thing. So now see, we have using game object dot find method, we have reference to game manager, and this get component game manager will give reference to our game manager script. So to make it more clear, I can write this as, I can declare this variable as game manager script, and I have to initialize that with the same name, right? So see, now with this, on this particular line, we have accessed our we have accessed our game manager game object, and later we have got this uh, component game manager script from this game manager game object. So uh, now it's time for us to use this particular method. See now here on mouse down we can use this method like game manager script dot, see dot, when we use this period operator, we get all the things which will be able to use this, and see the things present there which are public, we'll be able to see everything. Like see, we have this list here, targets, we have spawn delay, we have score text, and we have score, and even this applies to the methods too. So these four elements and the methods also will be able to see which are declared or given access modifier as public. So let's see them. In here, if I use period operator, I can see score. Score is the one of the variable we have in there. Score text is another variable. Targets is one thing, whereas we'll have everything. And see, spawn delay is another thing. So the method we need is update score. And see, let's give it generalized. So if we have our say if we click on something, we want to update the score by 5. Let's try this as of now. I guess I might not be able to click well because of my mouse condition here, which is very bad. So let me try my best. I'll keep this static and click if something comes in my way. Yes. See, immediately after clicking, I have my score updated, right? See how cool is that? Whereas, but the issue is, even when we click our bad objects, we have an increment in our score. So now it's time we deal with that. Oh, sorry. See, I'll try to click this. See, even when our we click our bad objects, we have this particular issue that we don't treat those bad objects as bad objects. We give them we give a score, positive score for them also. So here to have specific score for each of our game object, we can use a new variable in our target script. So see, we want custom scores for each of our target. So for that, in here I'll be going and creating a public int points variable. So points, yeah, I guess that's okay. For this particular target, this is the points awarded. So in here, I'll be just changing this to points. And later by going into Unity. So see in here, in prefabs, as we have target on each of our prefab. So it's time for me to see in bad one, I'll give a negative points for this. See, default will be having it initialized to 0. What I'll do is I'll give it -10. Whereas to my ball, I'll give it +5. To my say good 2, which is the energy drink, I'll be giving the value of 10. Whereas to my good 3, which is a crate, I'll be giving a value of 15. So let me save this and see, we have declared a specific variable, and using that variable itself, we are able to give different values. We can do the same thing using if conditions by checking which game object we have clicked in our on mouse down button, but we are not doing that. Simply by giving one variable, we got this power to uh, use this. So let me hit play, and yes, I have my objects spawning. Sorry. See, I have 5. Uh, I need to. Yeah, see, now for the energy drink, I got 10 points. For this crate, I got 20. Let me have one of my bad object. I'm waiting for a bad object and it's not coming. Yes, yes. It's my bad. No, my mouse bad. Yes. Hitting my mouse must give negative points as defined by us. So I need some bad object now. Yes. See, it decreased, right? See, now we are able to decrease that. So by this, we gave it custom score, right? So each target will have its own score, and based on that, we'll be updating our score.